Hello, I'm Shirlene O, Director of Strategy and Partnerships here at Hampshire Hospitals. I'm delighted that we will be celebrating World Autism Awareness Week from the 29th of March to the 4th of April through a series of activities to raise awareness and understanding. We will be marking World Autism Day with an interview with Tom Goble. I have got to know Tom through our reverse mentoring program in the past few months. Tom works in our medical records department. He joined HHFT because our care values resonated strongly with him. In this interview, Tom will be speaking to Michael Acton, author and life coach, about his struggles and his needs. I have been truly inspired by the passion and courage that Tom has to make a positive difference. I hope that you will gain some insight whilst watching this video, and you will feel as motivated as I do to make HHFT an organization that values our staff and our patients on the autism spectrum, an organization that values neurodiversity. Over to Tom and Michael.
So I'm Tom Goble. I'm a medical records clerk at Basingstoke and North Hampshire Hospital, and I've worked with HHFT for about 2.5 years now.
That long, goodness. I'm Michael Padraig Acton. I am a consultant. I've been trained in clinical and counselling psychology and systemics, and I work with a large assortment of issues. I write books about the issues, and I had the pleasure of meeting Tom some years ago and helping him out a little bit.
Perfect. Can you hear and see me okay?
I can. Tom, listening to what was said just a little bit ago, it would be very, very important for people watching this to understand you. If you could just tell us what brought you to this point in time, feeling that inviting me into this arena to talk and help, why now?
I mean, I guess I'm at a stage of my life. So I guess when I was very young, I didn't realise, there was no kind of indication that I was different in any way. I guess more eccentric things about me that are maybe down to autism were overlooked when I was sort of 6 and under. But I sort of started to notice differences in the ways that me and my friends and schoolmates were developing when I was about 7. And those only got worse as I got older. But I've always had this strong feeling that I'm different as opposed to, deficient. I'm not inherently better or worse than anybody else, but I had no way of kind of articulating that or being able to explain it very well up until the point I met you. I guess because my brain is wired slightly differently, I've had trouble doing things like, I guess, socially orientated things, including learning. My time in school was particularly difficult, and subsequently I wasn't able to use that time to, I guess, develop my skills and my confidence and to learn effectively. And subsequently it's meant that I've really struggled when it's come to, when it's come to graduating school and I guess developing a sort of professional life and identity. So, I mean, it's always been important to me to, because of the difficulties I've had before, to work for an employer that goes to some effort to kind of understand me and value me, which is what initially attracted me to the NHS. Leaving my parents' home in Devon when I was in my late 20s. When I first started, I found that because autism is so complicated, because it's, affects how my brain works and how I learn and perceive things, it was very difficult for members of staff at the trust, managers and colleagues to accommodate for me. And going back to that kind of initial point I made about feeling that I'm different rather than deficient, I really wanted to advocate for neurodiversity at the trust, because I believe that there are so many autistic people in the world who would find working with us just a godsend, and the opportunities that the NHS can give as an employer. So I want to kind of use my life experience to encourage more of the good things that the trust does and help educate and the people to overcome the, I guess, more difficult behaviours that I've encountered.
The one thing you haven't mentioned, which is important that people understand, is that I diagnosed you with Asperger's on the autism spectrum many years ago, and you've told me to be very clear and to be divulging and where you came from, your experiences at university. You did well at university, at school, socializing and surviving, your family not knowing how to manage it, you not knowing what's going wrong, but you being isolated and almost suicidal at times. It was a very grave and difficult place, and the immense amount of bullying you went through, not just at school, but in your area, the church sometimes, and at university. People don't understand that. I've just diagnosed somebody who's 50 and I always ask for a second opinion, which I did with you, and you went along to the autism department in Devon. But this person's 50, has been in a very dangerous relationship. She has not been able to manage her life very well because she didn't know what was going on. The family didn't know how to help her. It was just this problem. What I'm so grateful about you, Tom, is that we managed to get you in your early 20s, and also your family was so supportive and so loving through the process, and they were shocked and it was like, oh my gosh, no. But also at the same time, they really all came on board, your sisters, your mum and dad. But at this point, people don't see an invisible issue. If we need to do things differently, they don't see that. And they also don't see how, well, I'm very proud of you. You from where you were to now to be working, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And people don't see that. I've worked in the NHS. I worked in Dundee Royal Infirmary. I worked in Brighton Hove in the Royal Sussex. And the NHS is an extremely supportive place, but humans are humans. And unfortunately, a department or I was going to say a gaggle of nurses, but nurses, doctors, etc., people, administrative staff, etc., they are a team, and it's human nature to be a little bit political, a little bit competitive, or a little bit, and even just joking. And the one thing people don't understand is on the ASD, people really don't get the joke sometimes, or may seem awkward in a group environment. Very good on a one-to-one, but in a group environment, not quite getting it sometimes. And I think I came into this again with you because you were having trouble being moved. You've had some difficulty being moved from department to department because the management don't know what to do. Your colleagues don't know what to do. And we're hoping that this training video is going to give some people an insight just to stop, and say, what do I need to understand about this chap, Tom? And how would kindness play out? And I'm not being all woolly with you, but it is kindness. If we understand, when we know how to be kind. If we don't understand, we don't. And everyone's so busy. How do we be kind in a busy environment? And the NHS is the same as any corporate in the world. It's demanding on its people. And then there's you, Tom, that's going to be demanding a little bit more understanding than most. Not because you're stupid, an idiot, or you're quite the opposite. You're very smart and you've got a lot to offer. But we need to manage that, because your enemy is chaos and your enemy is disloyalty. And you hold on to those, and that's the nature of you. And I think moving you several times has almost made you feel like you're the problem, whereas really what we need to do is we need to find a way of having some kind of simple parameters for people working with people on the ASD. And the ASD is very vast and very different, but there are similar kind of areas where we can be kind and we can be thoughtful, but we do need to educate people because people don't know.
Yeah, it's a particularly difficult thing to address, I find, at times, because lots of I find ways that people interact, the things that they've learned from a very young age, kind of etiquette and things like that, and they're used to relating to people in a certain way, and it's about the way somebody communicates, and unfortunately if you're slightly off, it can sometimes trigger sort of warning signs in people's minds. You get kind of treated, with more suspicion, or unfortunately on occasions even contempt.
What's that like for you? What's that like for you? I mean, some people can brush that off. And what's it like for you with the way your brain's wired? What's it like for you to feel hostility from someone?
It's very difficult, because if I don't feel like I've done something to deserve that hostility, I can take things a little bit personally. And it can be kind of quite detrimental to my sort of self-confidence and my relationships with certain people.
And how's that manifest itself at home for you? Like when you go home, what's that like? How's it?
You mean like how do I relating to my family, or?
Well, what are the feelings when you've had a really difficult time at work, which we all have? Me, we all have difficult times. What is it like when you go home and you're alone?
I guess those things can manifest as either as a combination of sort of self-hatred, because there'll be part of me thinking, I've done something wrong. Could I have done something better? Questioning my own actions. But then at times, I also, on the other hand, I can often feel angry at the people, or the people around them who have sort of, I feel, have maybe enabled that behaviour.
There's something, and again, I don't want to be woolly by using the word kindness, but it is important. It's education and kindness. And if we had time today and we'd want to go through it, went through everything you've been through in your lifetime, from starting school at 5, 6 years of age, all the way through to now, if there had been a physical result similar to your emotional and psychological result, say for instance you've been in a car crash and you've been absolutely smashed up, you'd lost your legs, your face was burnt, etc., and you went into the NHS, there would be some kind of a visual for people to say, well, my goodness me, that chap's been through hell and back. And gosh, look, he's really gone through physical therapy. He's developed himself. And look, you know, he's smart and he's functioning and he's wants to be part of the team. But some people go, oh, when they see him, or some people get to know him and he might be in pain one day, I think that's what we're looking at, is something to do with how you are feeling regarding the reaction of people to you having a down day. And you fought depression, you have fought, you survived bullying, you survived not fitting, you survived being one of the loneliest people on the planet at times, just wishing and hoping for a relationship or friends, because you find that very difficult. Team dynamics are very difficult, and intimate relationships, unless somebody's very understanding and thoughtful and gets you, it's awkward for you. You're not sure what to do. If we were to close off this part about your experiences, and you know, and people don't see your invisible issues, they don't see that, and we do move away from saying disability, because it's not a disability, it's a different way of being wired, a different way of thinking. In actual fact, most people with autism have the most amazing loyalty, kindness, love, support, intelligence, and it's an incredible gift. How do we round off your trials in life and your difficulties, and what would you say to people to help them understand what that journey was? And then we'll move on to what could people do to support and help.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite difficult to summarize in a short period of time, but I don't know, I guess it's been kind of, it feels as though I've to some degree, like I've been targeted by you know, it feels to some extent like I've had a target on my back, but at the same time, along with the impairments that I've had to deal with, because I'm living in a society which doesn't accommodate for my neurotype, generally speaking. And on top of those impairments, I've kind of had to deal with the fact that because I appear sort of normal enough, I'm not really given the sort of understanding and sympathy that I've needed. So, yeah, I mean, you've put it quite well in, you know, explaining that at times in my life it's been very isolating and very, very difficult. But it's also very tough to deal with the frustrations involved with knowing that, you know, people's opinion and view of me typically isn't entirely accurate.
Mm.
You know, it doesn't feel as though my efforts, the efforts I put into, I guess, trying to live a productive life and a healthy life, it doesn't really feel like those are often acknowledged very much. When it comes to, I guess, teaching or trying to teach people how to, I guess, accommodate for neurodiverse people in a nutshell, I would say it's about acknowledging a different perspective and about, you know, being okay with the fact that somebody views or does something that's slightly different to what you're expecting. I guess, and that's a very big part of the frustration, is that lots of things feel as though they're significant obstacles to me, but I feel that with understanding from others, those obstacles can be overcome relatively easily in some instances. So it's I guess been particularly difficult on a number of levels because of that. I mean, it's very hard not being able to, because unfortunately lots of these issues don't just affect people my age, they also were present in different authority figures in my life. So I couldn't rely on the support really of teachers or to the same extent that others could. Yes, I was sort of frequently perceived as being a bit odd or being difficult, which I guess is a common sort of perception of an autistic student, unfortunately.
And maybe it would be helpful for people watching this to understand what I experienced working with autism in my practice. You came along battered, bruised, in a very dysfunctional place, and you worked really hard with us and you pushed through, and we got you to a place where you had optimism again. And we helped understand this, not just you, but your family too. And then we worked out ways of how we could manage your environment. Like, don't force yourself to go and stand in the middle of the pub because you're lonely, because that's a very difficult thing for you to do. And it's really anxiety provoking. And sometimes that would be the trigger, but you are so lonely in many ways. Why people should give you a standing ovation walking down the red carpet of life is because people are diagnosed with autism at all different stages of life and all different walks of life. I've seen people that are university professors that haven't been diagnosed but have had terrible relationships or issues in life or suicidal attempts, etc. I've had people that fly planes, would you believe, even, and doctors and nurses, and people come along to me, and it's interesting because I don't see that straight away. What I'm looking at is a person sitting with me saying, I need help for this, this, and this. And sometimes it could be drug abuse, sometimes it can be alcoholism, sometimes it can be severe depression, etc. And it takes quite a few sessions to actually work through those layers and then say, well, how did, okay, we've got this, we can see what's going on, etc. And let's get you to a safe place, which we did with you, Tom. But then it's like, oh, okay, so you have issues there, and we go into the childhood upbringing and what's going on there, and maybe even bringing the family to talk to them, say, well, how was it? And we're trying to fit something, and nobody fits one thing. The DSM-5 here is the manual we use to give us an idea of what's going on with somebody, but no human soul is the same. So sometimes we have people in a terrible state that really have to fight to get out of it. Unfortunately, some people don't, we lose them. Your journey has been severe, and rather than having a target on your back at work and with work friends, etc., and walking down the street or in a store or somewhere, how can we help people understand your journey, and how could we help people understand how best to be with you? Because the one thing we haven't mentioned is that you're very loyal, very loving, very kind, but I mean, everybody, all souls are different, but these are general traits which are extremely positive in there, but also not street smart is the best way I can do it, and very vulnerable. So if we take things literally sometimes, that's also a situation where also it takes a village to support people. And I guess what we're talking about today is it takes a village of the NHS to say, well, do you know what? We don't want to pity past, but also if you're going to the pub, let's go and just have one person maybe look out for Tom. just to make sure he's got company and he understands what's going on, because it's difficult. That's my starting thing. Tom, what do you need? What do you need people to understand? We'll get to what we need people to do, but that's just an example for you with the pub. It can get very busy, very noisy, can't hear things. You may not laugh at the right time because you're not quite sure of the joke, etc. And that then creates this awkward element in a group of people having a few drinks and letting off. And what can we educate the people about to understand you better in order to help you better?
Well, I mean, I guess if we're going to address the example you just used, one important aspect, I guess, is to acknowledge that the way I communicate and my body language may be sort of different to, might react differently to how people may expect, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I disapprove of what they're doing or I'm uncomfortable. I guess another thing I feel it's important to acknowledge is the fact that, I feel very proud of what I've achieved in the department I work in and the people I work with, but I feel something that's particularly important to acknowledge is that my career path has been dictated kind of more by necessity than me actually targeting something that I feel I'm particularly good at. And I guess it's very important for people to acknowledge that there are lots of autistic people who are kind of in the sort of same boat as me, and that it's very hard to live with that knowledge that you have gifts to give and things to offer, but those things are, you rarely ever get the opportunity to have those things acknowledged. So I hope that, I guess, my involvement with the trust and the consequences of me kind of having this discussion with you is that people begin to understand that accepting neurodiversity and accepting people like me is it's a huge step in the right direction, in the sense that you're sort of tapping into people who are dedicated and people who are potentially talented, who otherwise wouldn't get an opportunity in the workplace. I mean, with me, I wasn't very confident at school and uni, and I kind of did topics just because I enjoyed them without any vocational idea. I never got to explore a particular talent that, I've really kind of gave me hopes for what I wanted to do as an adult. So I left university with this history degree, and I was thinking to myself, without a place with the values of the NHS, I would just be, forced to work in a sort of highly kind of transactional sort of capitalistic society. And that kind of environment where, I'm forced to kind of subscribe to a way of doing things and to rules that people have made, just, I guess, who haven't considered, they're just considering efficiency and profit as opposed to getting the best out of the person working for them. And I guess living in a society like that makes things hugely difficult for me, but it also means that the kind of virtues and the strengths that I see within NHS staff so incredibly inspiring and important for me. because these people are far more likely to, I guess, be patient with me and to, I guess, to value me for who I am and to listen to the ideas I have to say and acknowledge the strengths I have. So yeah, I find that particularly helpful. I mean, it's also nice to have opportunities to communicate with people and to address people directly. I mean, it's maybe not be very practical given the very high demand we're under and the busy work that we do, but often it can sometimes be helpful to address people one-on-one and just look them in the eye and speak to them and be open and honest.
Maybe even create, and I'm going to go on to ask you a question, but maybe even for your management to have a weekly half an hour slot where you can actually sit with them and that's coming. So if you do have difficulties or you feel unsafe or something is insecure, something's wonderful, you have that moment to share with them, because it can be very isolating in the work environment too. Would that support you if we could find out a way of doing it?
Yeah, I suppose it would. I mean, one of the ideas that I've been having as well, I mean, this is a broader and more long-term idea, is for something like that to exist, but I guess like for the trust to provide that on the professional level. But that's I do think that would be I guess that's a sort of simple and relatively easy way of
and we need simple and easy. Now the biggest issue is that you just want to fit in, you just want to be part of your workforce, you want to fit in and be part of the group going to the pub, etc., which are sometimes mammoth tasks for you, because the one thing is managing variability and variety in humans, and that's tough sometimes. But also asking for help. What advice would you give anyone that may be in a similar situation to you with ASD, either diagnosed or undiagnosed? The biggest thing is to ask for help. But if we're going to ask for help, what kind of help do we need? And we're all different. So what would your advice be to somebody that's watching this and thinking, well, in actual fact, I'm experiencing something similar? Or what would your advice be to somebody that maybe not diagnosed, but is actually getting a lot from this and actually relating to it? What would your advice be?
I guess the first thing I would say would be to speak to a properly qualified professional about whatever issues you might be having. I find this is particularly helpful because I guess autism doesn't really have, because it's quite a complicated issue, because it's to do with the brain. There's lots of misunderstanding surrounding it and lots of misinformation out in the public sphere about the nature of autism and the causes of it. So, speaking to a sort of properly qualified and regulated professional would be the first thing that I would say. I guess once the right source of support has been identified, I'd say to people to try and be as open and honest as you possibly can, without being self-conscious or kind of worrying too much about how you'll be perceived or the effects it might have. And I appreciate that's much easier said than done, because I found, I guess, with the feelings of isolation I've experienced and the issues I've had with my mental health, it's been really important to kind of have that opportunity to vent and to, I guess, get whatever issue is bothering me, to share it and to just get it out of my head. It's not rattling around in there. And I guess.
And maybe the message to people could also be that I've met some of your team, your mentor, etc., and all lovely people. So we're not talking about people being nasty, unkind, etc. We're just talking about how we can get people to understand this is not simple. This isn't just like a head cold or something. This is a life. We're not making it up. This is real. And we need different management. And the management we need is something that's constructive and thoughtful and here's what you need. So rather than moving a person from a department or changing something up and managing it that way, really kind of learn from this, stay with it, of course, and treat people equally. And that means if you're not doing your job, Tom, you need a disciplinary. But you're doing your job. It's nothing to do with that. And you're probably doing your job really well, much, much better than most people, because there's that loyalty and conscientiousness. But it's about how do we, as a human team, give just a little bit extra to get the most from someone like you. And I think what I'm hearing you say is people need to reach out. If they're not sure about something, management are there to say, okay, well, I'm listening. But what is going on with you? What are you concerned about? How can we help you more? And you said a key word there. It's not just about being on the ASD. It's also about mental health problems that go with that and how we have to struggle and cope. And anyone listening to this with a mental health issue knows it's a lot of work. A broken leg, 6 weeks, it's healed, physical therapy, done. But this takes a lot longer and it's a lot more complex. And it takes a lot of guts and bravery. And I think that's what we've got to wrap up shortly, but that's what I'd like to leave the viewers with, that this is a statement of bravery, how you've made it through this, and how, you're very learned, you read a lot, you understand things a lot, and you want to disseminate, share your information to help others, to help people help you for sure, but also to help others find a way. And it's a difficult journey. It's a difficult journey.
Yeah, very much so. I've, I guess, tried to, in taking the first sort of few uncomfortable steps in a full-time professional job, it's given me the opportunity to learn so much, and through experience, and develop new relationships. And I would, without the, I guess, patience and support of certain managers, I would have never have had the opportunity to do this, and to grow and to contribute like I've tried to. And it's been very difficult, very positive. And I'd love for more people on the autism spectrum to have the same opportunities I've had.
Wonderful. And I joined you today because you requested it. Your management team thought it would be a good idea. And we need more help. It's an area where we need more help. We need more education and we need more support. So hopefully we've achieved that today.